Okay, all of you guys who've been in our home have been saying we need to have our own TV show, so
this is our try at it.
We'll see how it goes. Right now, you're in our dining room. If you know us, you know we love to travel, but we don't get enough vacation time to be on vacation all the time.
So one of our projects a few years back
was to change our dining room into a location that incorporated travel. One of the things that we've noticed from the places that we travel around the world is tea, sugar, and coffee are staples. No matter where you go, there's a tradition.
It feels like a colloquial local thing, but it is pretty much throughout the world, and that was due in part because of the East Indian Trading Company.
We've changed our dining room into the East Indian Trading Company. What we wanted with the East Indian Trading Company is for you to feel like you've just gotten off the ship somewhere in the world. You've sat down for a cup of coffee or tea, and your luggage is put behind you alongside the wall. Of course, the East Indian Trading Company was a while back, so you're not going to see your Samsonite hard-cased luggage sitting back here. What we actually have are old trunks.
A few of them are steamer trunks. Some of them are old Navy trunks, maybe back to the World War I.
Sometime in that era. In fact, this one has a tag in Korean. We don't even know what it says. We didn't pay for any of these. We had friends who just didn't have the space anymore for them, friends, family, and they were getting rid of them.
Well, and we like to recycle also. Love old stuff and like to kind of refurbish, repurpose.
And we decided to incorporate them into our china cabinet. I've been fortunate enough that family members have left me china, silverware, and as much as we entertain, we actually use it, but we needed some place close to the dining table that we could store it.
And Florida houses don't really have a lot of storage, especially in the kitchen, so it all kind of made sense to have a nice little hutch.
But we weren't going to IKEA for that. So I'd like you to take a look at what we have done with our china cabinet that we have made out of the trunks. First, let's show you how it works and what's stored inside. As you can see, all of the trunks open up, and inside we have nice storage for china, etc.
So in this trunk here, what we ended up doing is we didn't really do too many modifications to this. There's these teacup holders that have hooks that are made for sliding over cabinetry that you don't want to screw into.
When we could avoid altering these, we did, because there's just something so special about antiques and things that are older that they're unique. No one is ever going to walk into our house and say, "Oh my gosh, I've got the same." That's the beauty of being able to recycle and reclaim and make something into something that it's not supposed to be. And this actually comes out also. And more storage there. So you can see we get a lot of storage out of it. We wanted it to look like somebody had piled the luggage on, so they're not all stacked up one way, they open different ways.
Some of them are a little bit more difficult to get to, but you've got your larger items that you use for cooking or your preset, and then things that you can kind of access as you're hosting.
So we have some more storage over here in this old suitcase. I think it was a traveling salesman suitcase. I'm not positive, but just by the looks of it and this little feature that it has here. You can put napkins behind that or whatever.
More silverware, and then this also has
my
old silverware.
It's a great storage place. Napkin rings, whatever little items that you'd like to store.
It has that old smell.
It does have that old smell, which is kind of cool about old stuff.
And it kind of goes together. Again, it's luggage. It's sitting on your steamer trunks.
Yeah, kind of cool.
Nice vintage kind of look.
The first thing that I had to do was strip these down, sand them, antique oil them. I like to use this product,
These
Strippies. I like this because you brush it on. Be sure and wear gloves because it burns like an SOB. Polymer Boy will tell you about the strippies.
It does use an acid to kind of etch and take it off. It's kind of a gel of sorts. You brush it on, let it sit for a while, it kind of loosens everything up, and then you can use a scraper, scrape it off. And what we like to do is take some of the goo that's left that peels up, put it on the next place, keep using it. You can mix a little bit more with that, just keep moving it around. And the best thing about this particular thing is that it is water rinsable for easy cleanup. So once you get most of it done, you can hose the whole thing down, and you don't have to worry about mineral spirits or lacquers or anything else to kind of help pull the rest of that out.
And then once you get all of the paint and everything off, then you can start sanding it. You know, you start with a coarser grain sandpaper, and then you move on to a really fine. I like to get up to 400 if possible.
Yeah. You can go finer if you would like. I know a lot of people like to get that real nice finish, but keep in mind too that as you get those higher grits, you start to seal up the pores. So if you wanted to get any stains or oils or anything in there, you're sealing up all of that before you can even get that final treatment on.
You can use those finer sandpapers and steel wool after you put the teak oil on.
Teak oil. This one's Minwax.
That was the initial step. It's a lot of elbow grease. Some of the areas had some rust where the metal had actually rusted through. We did treat it with Ospo. Polymer Boy, you want to explain what Ospo does?
It's a phosphoric acid that kind of helps change a little bit of that back to, from iron oxide back to a little less of a rust. Turns the metal back to black. And then what we ended up using on some of the joints and things, because it's already there, you can't really weld on it, and we didn't want to take the whole thing apart. So we did use some methyl methacrylate fillers, use things like JB Weld, but there are a lot of good adhesives, structural adhesives that you can use that even might have a little bit of a metal powder color in there to where you'll be able to kind of burnish it back in.
And then sanded that back down. You really can't even tell in some of the places that we did it. This trunk was painted a horrible army green, and it was really fun as I stripped it down, because I found this tag. It's, I think, in Korean, not sure, but this trunk really turned out beautiful. One of the things though was that its handle was missing. It had at one time had leather on the top and bottom. Of course, I didn't need the handle on the bottom, but I needed something on the top. So I found some old leather, distressed it real nicely, and made a handle for it. This trunk had its canvas that was still on it. And you know, we like to keep things as authentic as possible. It was in pretty bad shape, so some of the edges had to be glued down with wood glue. And then we used a latex paint. You can get Oops paint at a lot of the hardware stores, and a lot of our friends give us paint because they know we recycle. So we just used old paint, tried to match it as closely as to what it appeared like the canvas had been at one time, and rolled the canvas with a latex paint.
So using that wood glue or PVA, polyvinyl acetate type adhesion, and with the latex also kind of helped glue and bind that old canvas back down to the base.
Thankfully I have Corey. I am not as mechanically minded. I am great with elbow grease. I will work until I drop, but understanding the mechanics of things and structural is more this guy's.
Yeah, a little bit. I make it up as I go along.
He does good.
So for this particular piece, built kind of a dolly with some casters on the bottom of it. We can kind of move this around a little bit easier. It does roll and move pretty easy. So it makes it easy just to kind of
you can clean
up around it underneath. Keep in mind we have china in here, so there's a lot of breakables.
We would normally empty it out before moving it too much. For cleaning though, I move it out all the time. Why don't you go ahead and tell them what you made the palette out of?
You know, a 2x4 frame, and then some old fence pieces.
Old fence slats that, again, somebody was throwing out.
We sanded those down a little bit, also treated those with teak. It seals the surface, keeps any wood weevils or anything like that that might have been in the stuff. We did soap them down, scrub them real good, a light soapy solution, a bleach solution. You could probably do too. Don't want to do too much because it kind of starts to eat away the lignin, I guess you would call it, in the wood. Get it cleaned up, again, teaked it, and then used 1x2s, 1x4s to kind of shim out.
To see some of the structural here, just so that it had more support and didn't have, that it holds its form and the door would shut better.
Again, a lot of these trunks are turn of the century, so they've sat in warehouses. They probably had some water damage.
Barns,
And they're not designed to really stay oriented like this. So whenever they were built, they were probably, it was really hard wood, but over age, they've warped a little bit. So if you stand them on edge, you might find that the doors may not, or the trunk tops may not want to line up because you've kind of skewed them or you've set them up in a different orientation.
And of course with glass and china, you want them to be very secure.
And you don't want to struggle with having to put the tops on now that you're using them more like a door. So one of the modifications that we did have to do is making sure that the whole thing held together. So we did drill some small holes through this sidewall here. We used 1/4-20 bolts with fender washers, and then you have the 1x2s or 1x3 spacer to lift it up to make sure that the door has clearance, and then another set of holes into the side of this trunk with another fender washer and a nut on the back side of that to hold the whole thing together. Again, small modifications for a repurpose or reutilization. I hope you like these videos. I hope it helps you get that creative drive, gives you some good ideas on how to make your place unique.